Marcy Torres stood in the middle of her San Diego apartment, the late afternoon sun spilling through floor to ceiling windows and painting the hardwood gold. Beyond the glass, the Pacific stretched out, a restless shimmer of blue that smelled of salt and promise when she cracked the balcony door. At 26, she was a graphic designer with a knack for turning chaos into art, and today that chaos was Carmen's 50th birthday. She'd been planning it for weeks, determined to crack the icy wall Mateo's family had built around her. The bistro she'd booked sat a mile down the coast, a weathered gem with wooden tables and windows streaked from years of sea spray. Carmen had loved it once Mateo said she and her late husband used to share fish tacos there, laughing over cheap wine. Marcy had poured her savings into it, a deposit for the space, catered platters of shrimp ceviche and grilled mahi-mahi, even driftwood centerpieces she crafted herself. She could still feel the rough bark under her fingertips, the ache in her wrist from twisting wire to hold it all together. She wanted them to like her, Mateo's mother Carmen with her sharp eyes and sharper tongue. His twin sisters, Sophia and Luna, 23 and perpetually unimpressed. His brother Nico, 21, who smirked like he knew something she didn't. 3 years married to Mateo, and Marcy still felt like an outsider, a shadow they refused to see. She couldn't pin down why. Maybe it was her loud laugh, her thrift store style, or just that she wasn't one of them. But she was a people person, damn it, and she'd fix this. Mateo lounged on the couch, all lean frame and dark hair, scrolling his phone. At 29, he ran a tech startup that kept their sleek apartment humming, but his hazel eyes carried a wariness she couldn't always read. He glanced up as she adjusted a mock-up centerpiece on the coffee table. "You sure about this, Marcy?" His voice was soft, like he was testing the air. "They don't deserve it. You're wasting your light on people who'd rather sit in the dark." She waved him off, brushing a strand of auburn hair from her face. "It's fine. Carmen's turning 50. She deserves something special. And maybe they'll see I'm not the enemy." He sighed, a sound that mingled with the distant crash of waves. "You're too good for them. Always have been." Marcy ignored the warning, texting Sophia and Luna about the menu. Their replies were curt, "Do it yourself. If you're so keen," and Nico didn't bother responding. Fine. She'd handle it. She'd invited Carmen's old friends, consulted Mateo on family guests, picked every detail to match Carmen's picky taste. It was her olive branch wrapped in sea glass and hope. The next day, they drove to Carmen's bungalow, a squat stucco house 10 minutes inland where the air smelled more of dust than ocean. Mateo gripped the wheel tighter than usual, his jaw set. "We don't have to do this," he muttered as they parked. "I want to," Marcy said, forcing a smile. "It's her birthday eve. She'll be excited." Inside, the living room was dim, cluttered with faded photos and a sagging couch. Carmen sat in an armchair, her gray-streaked hair pulled back, sipping tea that steamed faintly in the March chill. Sophia and Luna sprawled on the floor, scrolling their phones, while Nico slouched against the wall, arms crossed. They all glanced up, startled, as Marcy and Mateo walked in. "Happy almost birthday, Carmen," Marcy chirped, setting a small gift bag, art supplies she thought Carmen might like on the coffee table. Small talk stumbled along, the weather, Mateo's latest app update. Then Marcy took a breath. "So tomorrow evening, we've got something planned at the bistro, your favorite spot. I've got your friends coming, family too, all your favorite food." Mateo cut in, nodding at her. "It's all Marcy. She's the one you should thank." Carmen's smile froze, then soured, her teacup clinking as she set it down. Marcy faltered. "I made sure it's perfect for you," she added, voice thinning. "Ceviche, mahi-mahi, the works." Carmen's eyes narrowed, a nasty edge creeping into her tone. "Oh, how thoughtful." Her voice dripped sugar, but it was the kind that rotted. "I appreciate the effort, Marcy, really, but I won't be there." Marcy blinked, the room tilting. "What? Why not?" Carmen leaned back, folding her hands. "It's my 50th. I want it special family only. My friends are like family, sure, but you," she paused, letting the word hang, "you're not. So I'd rather you didn't come. You understand, don't you?" The air thickened. Mateo's hand twitched toward Marcy's, but he said nothing. Sophia stifled a snort. Nico's smirk widened, Marcy's chest tightened, the driftwood and sea salt of her dreams crumbling into dust. Marcy sat on the edge of the couch in Carmen's dim living room, the sting of her mother-in-law's words still burning. "You're not family," the phrase echoed sharp as the sea glass she scattered across the bistro tables. Mateo's hand rested on her knee, warm but tense, his silence louder than the muffled snickers from Sophia and Luna. Nico's smirk was a knife twist. Marcy's pulse hammered, her carefully built bridge collapsing under Carmen's cold stare. She stood, legs unsteady, the gift bag of art supplies untouched on the table. You know what, Carmen? Her voice trembled but hardened. If I'm not welcome, neither's your party. You can shove your family only crap. And if you show up tomorrow, I'll have security drag you out. Carmen's eyes widened, the fake sweetness vanishing. You're being cruel, Marcy, cold. Marcy laughed, a jagged sound that startled even her. That's rich coming from you. She turned to Mateo, who nodded faintly, jaw tight. The twin smirks faltered. Nico shifted uneasy. Carmen opened her mouth, tears glinting crocodile tears, Marcy thought, but Marcy was done. She grabbed her bag and stormed out, the dusty air of the bungalow choking her as Mateo followed. The drive home was silent, the ocean a dark blur beyond the highway. Marcy's hands shook as she dialed the bistro, but it was too late to cancel money spent, plans locked. She slumped against the window, the glass cool on her forehead. Mateo parked, then stepped onto their balcony, lighting a cigarette. The smoke curled into the night, mingling with the salt breeze. Inside their apartment, Marcy paced, the hardwood creaking under her sneakers. The rejection gnawed, but something else sparked anger. Bright and hot, she grabbed her phone, texting invites to her friends Jess, Ravi, anyone who'd laugh with her. Screw it, she muttered, yanking the driftwood centerpiece from the coffee table and tossing it into a box. This is mine now. Mateo leaned against the balcony rail, exhaling smoke. You okay? He asked, voice low. They don't get to win, she said, meeting his gaze. You were right, they don't deserve me. He stepped inside, crushing the cigarette in an ashtray. You're more to me than they'll ever be, Marcy. Always have been. She nodded, a flicker of warmth cutting through the fury. Then let's make it ours. Invite your crew too. By evening, the bistro buzzed with life. Marcy had ripped down Carmen's muted decor, white linens and soft candles, replacing them with chaos, string lights that flickered like fireflies, the playlist thumping bass through the salt-streaked windows. The air smelled of lime and tequila, margarita pitchers sweating on the bar. Jess whirled her, laughing, while Ravi argued with Mateo over some app glitch, their voices rising over the surf's rhythmic crash outside. Marcy spun, the room a blur of color and sound, her hurt dissolving into the pulse of the night. She paid for this, the food, the space, the effort, and she'd damn well enjoy it. Mateo caught her eye from across the room, a rare smile tugging at his lips as he clinked a beer with a friend. She grinned back. The weight lifting, if only for now. Later, sprawled on their couch with the ocean whispering beyond the open balcony, Marcy posted photos her and Jess mid laugh, Mateo's arm around her, the bistro glowing against the dusk. Her phone buzzed almost instantly. A text from Sophia, you're selfish, Marcy, stealing mom's day in that place. Low, even for you. Marcy stared at the screen, the words a fresh jab. The bistro meant something to Carmen, memories of her husband, of better days, but she'd thrown Marcy out of that story. Her thumbs hovered. Then she tossed the phone aside. Let her cry, she muttered, sinking into the cushions. Mateo glanced over, eyebrow raised. Sophia? He guessed. Yeah. Calling me a thief? She snorted, like I didn't pay for every damn thing. He sat beside her, the couch dipping. They've been taking for years money, time, me. You don't owe them a second thought. Marcy leaned into him, his flannel shirt rough against her cheek. I wanted them to see me, really see me. They never will, he said, voice soft but firm. Not because of you, because of them. She nodded, the truth settling like sand after a wave. The party had been her rebellion, a middle finger to their rejection, and it felt good, messy, loud, hers. But Sophia's text lingered, a splinter she couldn't quite pull. Had she gone too far? Or not far enough? The ocean murmured outside, offering no answers, just the steady pull of its tide. Marcy stood in their San Diego apartment, the storm rolling in off the Pacific, turning the vast windows into a canvas of gray. Rain streaked the glass, drumming a restless rhythm that matched the churn in her chest. The high from the bistro party had faded, Sophia's accusatory text still a dull ache, but it was Mateo's quiet that unsettled her most. He sat on the couch, staring at his phone, his broad shoulders hunched like he carried an anchor she couldn't see. She pushed him since they got home, her voice soft but insistent. What's going on, Mateo? Cutting them off, it's huge. You don't just drop family like that unless she trailed off, watching his hazel eyes flicker with something raw. He set the phone down, rubbing his face. You deserve to know, he said finally, voice low. After Dad died, I was 21. The twins were in high school, Nico barely a teen. Mom never worked, Dad's savings wouldn't last, so I stepped up. Marcy sank beside him, the couch cushions cool against her legs. The storm growled outside, thunder rumbling through the walls. Stepped up how? Worked my ass off, he said, a bitter edge creeping in. Odd jobs, then the startup at 23. Investors came through and it took off. I went from scraping by to this. He gestured vaguely at the sleek apartment, the ocean view. But they got lazy. Mom, the twins, Nico, they leaned on me. Hard. I didn't mind at first, thought it's what Dad would have wanted. She nodded, piecing it together. The late nights he still pulled, the way Carmen always called him first when bills loomed. And then I started dating, he said, meeting her gaze. They hated it, every girlfriend. Said I'd get distracted, that my job was to keep them afloat. When I met you, he paused, swallowing. You wouldn't back down. They couldn't scare you off, so they tried turning me against you. Marcy's breath caught, the room shrinking around his words. They what? Fights, guilt trips, he said, voice cracking. While we were dating, they begged me to dump you. Said you'd ruin everything. I fought back, but they just pulled away. Kept the distance to punish me, still took the money, though. She stared at him, the storm's howl filling the silence. All those canceled dinners she'd blamed on herself, the excuses she swallowed, it wasn't just her they'd rejected. It was him, too, for choosing her. Her chest tightened, guilt and fury tangling, had her push for Carmen's party wide in that rift. Before she could ask, his phone rang, vibrating against the coffee table. Carmen's name flashed. Mateo hesitated, then answered, putting it on speaker. Her voice cut through, shrill and accusing. You let her ruin my birthday, Mateo. She's poisoning you. I told you she would. Marcy's fist clenched. Mateo's face reddened, his grip on the phone whitening his knuckles. I gave you all I had, Ma, he said, voice breaking, and you despise her for it. You're abandoning us, Carmen snapped. Your father's rolling in his grave. Enough. Marcy snatched the phone, her pulse roaring louder than the thunder. He's done carrying you all. You've drained him dry, years of it. Figure it out yourselves. She hung up, slamming the phone down, the storm's fury a mirror to her own. Mateo stared at her, eyes glassy. I can't keep doing this, he whispered. I'm cutting them off. For good. She nodded, adrenaline fading into resolve. You should. They don't deserve you. But doubt gnawed had she pushed him here. He'd loved his family once, she knew that. The man who'd built an empire for them wasn't the type to abandon without cause. This was deeper, older than her. He stood, pacing to the window, rain shadows dappling his flannel shirt. They'll fight it, he said. Mom's probably calling Sophia now, plotting. Let them, Marcy said, joining him. The ocean churned below, dark and wild. We'll handle it together. He turned, pulling her close, his breath warm against her hair. I should have told you sooner. Didn't want you thinking it was your fault. It's not, she said, though part of her wondered. She wanted to fix his family for him, for them. Now they were breaking instead. The storm raged on, lightning splitting the sky, and Marcy felt the weight shift, not gone, just different. They were in this now, side by side, but what came next was a shadow she couldn't yet name. Marcy woke to pounding on their apartment door, the sound jarring against the soft patter of rain that had lingered since the storm. It was barely a day after Mateo's decision to cut ties, and already Carmen was here, her voice slicing through the wood. Open up, Mateo, we're not done. Marcy glanced at Mateo, his face pale as he pulled on a hoodie, embraced herself. She swung the door open. Carmen stood there, gray hair wild, flanked by Sophia, Luna, and Nico, their eyes blazing. The hallway smelled of wet concrete, their shoes tracking mud onto the welcome mat. This isn't your son's house, Carmen snapped, jabbing a finger at Marcy. You don't get to push me out. It's our house, Marcy shot back, stepping forward. You're intruding. Say what you came for and go. Mateo moved beside her, voice tight. I told you, Mom, done. No more money, no more games. Carmen's face twisted. You're abandoning us for her. Your father would be ashamed, Sophia cut in, sneering. She's got you wrapped around her finger. Huh? Nico added, you owe us, man, not some gold digger. Marcy's temper flared, heat rising in her chest. Mateo's eyes glistened, his breath hitching, and she knew he couldn't take this, not their guilt trips, not the father card. She stepped between them, voice steady. You're lazy, ungrateful leeches. He's carried you for years, built everything while you sat back. Call me what you want, but you're the gold diggers here. They froze, stunned. Carmen sputtered, you little, but Marcy cut her off. Get out before I call the cops. You're not welcome. She pointed to the elevator, unwavering. Carmen glared, then turned to Mateo. Your father would hate you choosing her over us. Mateo flinched, tears spilling, and Marcy's heart cracked. They shuffled out, Carmen's parting shot hanging in the air. The door slammed, and Mateo crumpled, sobbing into his hands. Marcy held him, the hardwood cold under her knees, whispering, You're enough. We're enough. Hours later, after he calmed, she said, We need lawyers. They won't stop. He nodded, wiping his face. Yeah, they'll come for blood. She was right. Days later, a legal notice arrived. Carmen and the siblings sued, claiming Mateo had siphoned their inheritance after his father's death to fund his startup. It was a lie, outrageous and bold, and it hit hard. Whispers spread online. His company's stock wobbled, and Marcy saw the toll in his sleepless nights. She hired a family lawyer, digging through records to prove every dollar Mateo earned was his own sweat. 2 weeks of depositions and courtroom glares later, they won. The judge fined Carmen's crew for defamation, a hefty sum they couldn't pay. Word trickled back. The extended family shunned them. Disgusted by the stunt, Sofia, Luna, and Nico scrambled for jobs, floundering without Mateo's safety net. Marcy felt a grim satisfaction watching from their apartment as the sun set over the Pacific, painting the waves orange. They fought and held, but the victory was heavy, laced with Mateo's quiet grief. That evening, they walked the beach below their building, barefoot in the cool sand. The tide lapped at their toes, a gentle hiss against the dusk. Mateo skipped a pebble into the water, ripples spreading wide. Think we're okay? He asked, voice soft. Marcy shrugged, the breeze tugging her hair. We're figuring it out. She kicked at a shell, watching it tumble into the foam. The lawsuit was over. Carmen's venom silenced for now, but questions lingered. Had she pushed him too far from his roots? Could they build something new without that shadow? He took her hand, fingers rough from years of work she now understood. They were my family, he said, almost to himself. But maybe family's what we make it, you and me. Yeah, she said, squeezing back. Maybe. The horizon stretched endless, a line between what was and what could be. She started this wanting approval, a place among them. Now, standing here, she didn't need it. She had Mateo this moment, the sand shifting beneath her. But doubt flickered. Could they outrun past, or would it wash back like the tide? They walked on, the waves whispering secrets they couldn't yet answer. The sky darkened, stars pricking through, and Marcy let the uncertainty settle. It wasn't closure, not fully, just a step, a breath, a chance to see what lay beyond.